So I would say that getting into the material every day, day in and day out is key. You shouldn't skip a day of study because if you skip the day and then you lose the momentum, it's very hard to get back. Momentum is key. And revising the topics, whatever we studied earlier. And I think I forgot to mention the set of 30 questions, which you reiterate every now and then. I used to do that. I used to keep in mind doing that set of 30 questions every day, even after I do my new material, because that will help us retain the material that we had already studied before. So that is very important. And flashcards, I would recommend PowerPoint slides. Maybe that is a new thing to the audience, whoever is listening to them. PowerPoint slides definitely help.
Welcome to episode 79 of the CPA Exam Experience podcast from SuperfastCPA. I'm Nate, and in today's interview, you're going to hear me talk with Rolwin. Rolwin is one of our customers from India, and at the time of this interview, he had just passed FAR. I think this was about 3 months ago. He's now all done with his other 3 sections, so congrats to Rolwin. What I really like about Rolwin's story is that in the interview, I could tell that he was always evaluating his own study process, and he was making changes when something wasn't working. And as you'll hear him describe in the interview, when he started the study process, the material was really difficult for him. So in this interview, Rolwin has a lot of very specific tips about how he studied, how he broke down each aspect of the study process. You get to hear, like I said, his iterations of what he was doing in the beginning, why he realized that one thing wasn't working, and what he would switch to, or the things he discovered that really did work for him. So before we get into the interview, I just want to mention 2 things. First, if you have not taken the time yet, the best place for you to start, and this is where pretty much every person you've heard on these interviews started, is one of our free study training webinars. That is where we do the full overview of how we think the study process should work, how to use your review course much more efficiently and much more effectively. What I always say is this is 1 hour that will literally save you months and months of time and frustration, mainly because you won't have to figure this stuff out on your own through trial and error. So to sign up for one of those sessions, just go to our main website at superfastcpa.com, or if you're watching this on YouTube, there should just be a link down in the description. The second thing is our free podcast giveaway. So each month we give away 3 pairs of Powerbeat Pro headphones. What we really emphasize is that while you're trying to study for these exams anyways, you should be trying to use all the little gaps in your day to constantly be re-reviewing, re-hitting topics. They are my favorite headphones. I use mine constantly. Audio is just such a helpful medium because you can be listening, reviewing something, learning new things while you're doing other mundane tasks that we have to do every day, like driving, going to the gym, going on walks. While you're preparing meals, whatever it is, you can have headphones in. So to sign up for the free giveaway, just go to superfastcpa.com/enter. Or again, if you're on YouTube, there will be a link down in the description. So with that out of the way, let's get into the interview with Rolwin. You said you're in India?
Yes, that's correct.
What part or what city?
Yeah, I am from Bangalore, Karnataka, India.
Okay. That's a big one, right? I've heard of that, I think.
Yeah, that's a big city.
Awesome. I just looked and we've sent a lot of emails back and forth over the last year or so. How long have you been working on your CPA?
Yeah, so my CPA journey started in the month of January 2020. I think that is when I watched a lot of YouTube videos, YouTube advertisements from your website, Superfast CPA, and that is how I got to know about it. And I think that is when the new version of the CPA study material as well, which came out, which seemed pretty interesting. And the videos and the testimonies which the candidates gave, the already purchased customers, that seemed to be very interesting and very influencing. And that is why I got very motivated. And then I was totally satisfied that this study material will help me pass the CPA exams.
Awesome. So you mentioned some of the interviews. So did you hear some of the other podcast interviews then?
Yeah, I have heard a few of them.
Cool. And then you're using a main review course as well for kind of your main study sessions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I use Miles. So there's a course called Miles.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
from India. Yes,
hmm
I use that.
Okay. So, not so much about the study process, but how does it work if isn't there an Indian CPA? Like, it seems like I've heard like there's a separate CPA in India, the Indian CPA, and then obviously you're working on the US CPA exams. So, what's the difference between those two? And how, if you were in India, how do you choose between which one you try to get?
Yeah, sure. So Indian CPA is basically called Chartered Accountancy. Chartered Accountancy is a 3-year course, and you can start the course right from you pass your 12th grade. That is when you can start. So that does not
Okay.
require 3 years of bachelor's degree or any sort of
Okay.
degree which makes you eligible for a 120 credit. Like you don't need that 120 credits in order to sit for the Chartered Accountancy course. And
Okay.
there are 3 levels. So there's a foundation, intermediate, and a final, which spans across 3 years. And during these 3 years, the candidate has to work under a qualified chartered accountant in order to sit for the final exams.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is why I felt that this is a 3-year course, which is pretty long. You have
hmm
to remain invested in the course, and then a lot of time goes into this. But at the same time, while I was studying for my bachelor's, that is when one of the big fours came to our college, and then they had come for placements. And in their pre-placement talk, they had mentioned about the certified public accountant course and what are the benefits of it. And I was convinced enough, to sit for the interview. And yeah, and fortunately, I got through the interview process. And right now, yeah, my CPA journey is on.
Yeah, and you've passed 3 so far, right? That's what you're um
Yes, that's correct. I've passed FAR, BEC, and audit.
awesome. FAR's the big one, but I mean having 3 done, that's awesome. So you know your process is working. Going back to that real quick. So, did you do the chartered accountant thing already? And then now you're adding the
Uh,
CPA?
Not yet, Nate. So I haven't done that. I actually did the foundation course, after which I joined my bachelor's degree program, where the classes used to be pretty long, and then I couldn't manage both. And that is why I thought
Gotcha.
of maybe just complete my bachelor's degree. And later I'll probably get back to the chartered accountancy course. However, one of the big fours came to our college, and unfortunately I got placed. So that got sidelined, and I got into the CPA course.
Awesome. And so that's why it's applicable because you'll be working on like American client stuff using
Yes, yes,
okay,
yes.
gotcha.
Yeah. So CPA is the firm encourages candidates to do CPA. So that is a win-win situation for both of us.
And they changed it, right? Where you can test for the CPA there in India. I think even like a year ago you had to fly somewhere else. Is that right? I don't know that much
Yes,
about.
yes, yes, that's correct. Actually, 2020 has been a blessing in disguise, because earlier we were supposed to go to the Middle East or come to USA in order to give the exams. But
Okay, that's
during
right.
the COVID-19, I think AICPA were kind enough to make the Indian candidates not to travel anywhere and give the exam within India. So I think in India there are around 8 centers across the country where candidates can give the CPA exam. So I found it very easy and very convenient to give the exams and not to travel during COVID-19.
Yeah, that's nice to not have to have traveled during that. Has all the big four kind of do they have a presence down there? So there's a decent demand for getting the CPA.
Yes, yes. There are a lot of
Yeah.
MNCs which have come down to India, and then they are looking out for CPAs. So the credibility of CPA is very much increasing in India, and a lot of candidates from India are looking forward to CPA. As
Mm.
I was mentioning earlier, the chartered accountants who are already qualified are also looking for CPA as an extra qualification, so that they can get an exposure of international accounting, or maybe get settled somewhere outside India or anything of that sort.
Gotcha. Awesome. So going back to your study process, you kind of found our website and our study tools pretty much as soon as you started studying for the CPA then?
Yes.
Okay. You followed one of those ads and watched our free hour training? That's what most
Yes,
people
I
do.
did that.
Was that your first thing?
Yeah, that was the first thing. Actually, when I went on YouTube and tried finding CPA, that is when a couple of ads from your side I got to watch. And then I was pretty, curious to get to know about
Yeah.
more about your strategies and the how fast you cleared your CPA exams in 3 months, which was very eye catching. And I got into the videos and I was, convinced enough. Then I kept watching your motivating videos, which you used to, post
Mhm.
about doing the MCQs every now and then revising the material on a daily basis. So all those
Yeah.
things, actually, when we look at it pragmatically, it actually works. So it kind of, I realized that, okay, this study material will help me in clearing my exams in some way or the other.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you have your main review course. So how do you use our study tools along with your main review course?
All right. So as I earlier told, I have Miles,
Hmm.
the course provider from India, along with that Superfast CPA. So what I did was I used to go through the Superfast CPA, the review notes.
Okay.
Actually, I can, probably tell you one more thing. What I did was before purchasing the Miles, I had purchased the Superfast CPA review course in the month of January.
Oh, okay.
And I had actually bought my Miles review in the month of, I think, February or March. So I had already started, reading through the review material and I was planning for my FAR exam. So I had already started reading through the review notes again and again while I was commuting to office. That time I was going to the office and in
Hmm.
between the lockdown started. So yeah. So I had made notes. I had highlighted the important points from the FAR section. And during the office hours, whenever we had a tea break or anything of that sort, I used to have the app open and then I used to do the 5 minute MCQ sessions. Yeah. So I used to pretty much do that during my office time. After the lockdown started, after that, I got into the main course provider and then I used to watch their videos and then do MCQs every day.
So you just kind of follow you just take our strategies of mostly doing sets of MCQs and you just kind of apply that to your miles material. And then you still just use our study tools on the app as you go through your day type thing.
Yes, yes. Actually, since for me, I am a bachelor's graduate, right? So my concepts for accounting were not that great. So I had to go through the video in order to get that basic level of understanding so that my
Yeah.
concepts are correct. Yeah, because initially I didn't find the MCQ's first approach to be, very convenient. Like I found it to be slightly difficult. So I was going through the videos first. And when I went back to the MCQs, that is when I could, join the dots and then go on with MCQs.
Yeah. And depending on the topic, some people you have to do it that way. And that makes sense. And so which one did you take first?
So I gave my FAR exam in the month of December 2020. I took a lot of time to prepare for it because
Mhm.
I really wanted FAR to get out of the way initially.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started studying for my exam, I think in the month of July, August. That is when I kept on doing my MCQs, the main course miles. Whenever I got time in between, I used to do the Superfast CPA, a 5 minute video. The MCQ sessions.
Hmm.
Yeah. And one more thing that I would like to mention is the flashcard concepts. So what I used to do is I used to prepare my notes in the form of a PowerPoint presentation. So I used to use Microsoft PPT as a tool since if you look at the PPT over there, the slides are in the form of a flashcard where you can just scroll down,
Yeah.
up or down in
Yeah.
order
That's
to
true.
review the material.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when I did my MCQs, and if I found that, okay, this MCQ is slightly tricky or maybe a little challenging, that is when I wrote down in my own words or whatever the information that MCQ used to provide after I click on the right or the wrong answer. I used to get that information and then I used to put that in my PPT slide one after the other, which was actually very handy on my exam day because I never opened my main course provider on the exam day. I was just relying on the PPT slides that I had prepared, which
Hmm.
actually I think pretty much had everything that I wanted to, cover before the exam day.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't heard that someone using PowerPoint, but the key idea is to have some form, like some people take like just notes, normal notes, handwritten notes in a notebook. Some people type it out in Microsoft Word. Some people make digital flashcards, physical flashcards, but the key idea is just some form of writing out the concepts that you struggle with in your own words so that you can understand it and
Yes.
look at it later. And yeah, the most helpful time
Yes.
right before your exam. So,
Yes.
so
Yes.
do you still do that? You do all your notes in PowerPoint still?
Yeah. Yeah. I still do it because I find it very effective. Initially for the power section, it was my first time. So that I didn't realize it earlier. So that is why it took a long time preparing for the power section. So earlier, like you said, I used to just watch videos in order to understand
Hmm.
the power section.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I have watched most of the videos twice
Yeah.
because, what happens is I tend to forget the concept or it doesn't remember sometimes. So
Yeah.
then for the third time, I realized, okay, I have to put this down somewhere in order to remember it. And at the exam day, it will be very easy because I can't again go through the books. The books are, very thick, like, very fat. It's very
Yeah.
difficult on the exam day to go
Exactly.
through that. And that is why I decided to resort to the Microsoft PPT slides, which was very handy. And I could carry my laptop to the exam center before giving my exams. And it was
Hmm.
actually pretty convenient.
And so when you review them, do you I can't even remember what it's called. Do you like go into presenter mode so you can just click through your slides really fast?
Yes, yes. I used to go to the presentation mode. And then I also bought a presentation remote, which used to help me,
Oh,
from a
okay.
faraway place
Yeah,
and then switch slides. So yeah,
that's funny. I mean, that's a good idea. I bet someone will hear that and try it that way. And then what was your process for kind of learning not multiple choice, task-based simulations, and how did you use those in your study routine?
yeah. So the task-based simulations, I actually, didn't start attempting it until I was complete with my MCQs and the entire course, because the task-based simulations seem to be quite intimidating if you just jump in between. So what I
Hmm.
did was I initially completed my MCQs and the review course, the videos, all of it. And after which I started my task-based simulations. So task-based simulations, pretty much I used to just go through them. Initially, I felt it very hard because this entire CPA exam itself was new to me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was initially very hard for me. But as and when I got to know the gist of it, how the tester tries to test the concepts on the exams, then initially, and then after that on weekends, I used to, do a couple of them or maybe 3 or 4 of them. I used to take a lot of time initially because, like, to be honest, I used to take around maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes for a simulation because they were hard. Fast
Hmm.
simulations are hard.
Yeah, they are.
And yeah, and after that, slowly I started picking up the pace. And I think before the exam, maybe a 1 week before that, I used to do a lot of sims and MCQs, and I gave a couple of mock tests as well. And one more thing I would like to mention is I gave my mock test at the time zone when I'm actually taking my exam. So I used to take my exam in the afternoon session. So
Mhm.
I gave a couple of my mock tests in the afternoon session itself so that I get to understand how I'm feeling, whether I'm sleepy or I'm active, all of that. I just wanted to experience that before going into the actual exam.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Just the same time of day, see what 4 hours feels like. I mean, it's a good idea. So are you going back to work now? Are you still at home? You working from home?
Yeah, I'm still working from home and
Okay.
I find it very, interesting and lucky enough to be at home so that I can
Yeah.
prepare for my exams. So I'm just hopeful that until December, I can clear all my sections and then maybe after that, I can get back to office. So I'm
Yeah.
still working from home
When is your reg exam scheduled for?
in the month of December.
Oh, it's in December. Okay.
Yes.
So you take quite a bit of time for each exam.
Yeah, that's because I'm currently working, right? So I find
Yeah.
it little difficult and I'm not that great with the concepts. So I still have to go to the course and then go through it. So yeah, as you said, it is very, convenient to go as per the MCQ first approach, but I just find it a little more easy to go to the videos and then get back to MCQs. I know it is little time consuming, but since the concepts are not that great, I just prefer that.
Right. And like you said, it's kind of a different thing because it's kind of all I mean, you're kind of learning some of the basics at the same time, so it is
Yeah.
kind of a different situation. So what does your daily routine look like from start to finish? Do you study in the morning and then work, or just what's a normal day look like?
Yeah. So I normally prefer to study in the morning. I used to, get up around 6 a.m. in the morning. So it normally differs. Not every day at 6 a.m., maybe 6:30 a.m. sometimes or 5:30 a.m.
Mhm.
sometimes. It differs. But I used to make it a point getting up early in the morning and then trying to study before I log in for my office work. So yeah, I have studied pretty much. I have always preferred to study in the morning. And if the work was light during the day and if I get to log off a little early, then I also, try to make an effort in the evening to just go through the concepts again or some videos so that, because doing MCQs in the evening, it's little hard during the day. So if it's
Mhm.
videos or something, then you can at least go through them passively. You can just try to understand the concepts.
Right. That's always what I've said is it just makes more sense to do your most mentally demanding thing in the morning when your brain is fresh before you're tired from work. And so that would be the morning. And then
Yes.
stuff in the evening that's just kind of easy on your mind, like reading the review notes or looking through your own notes, or I guess your PowerPoints, or just stuff that's not as mentally taxing. How do you study on the weekends? Is it any different, or is it about the same?
Weekends, I used to study around maybe 4 to 5 hours. Weekends, like I didn't keep it like very, very strict in terms of studying, but then I used to chill for some time and then I used to study as well. So, but during nearing the exam, that is when I, studied for more time, put in more hours. But I kept it light on the weekends, but I made sure that I study every day because even if we skip at least one day, also the momentum breaks, and then it's very hard
Right.
to get back to the studying because the momentum is key in this CPA journey.
Yeah, definitely. That was a big thing for me. It was just easier for me to not take days off. It just
Yeah.
made the whole thing easier. And then do you ever struggle with motivation? Like have days where you just really don't want to study? And if you do, like, I mean, what do you tell yourself? How do you get yourself to still do it?
Yeah, for me, the benefits of the CPA after becoming a qualified CPA was enough for me to motivate myself. Apart from that, whenever I was down, like looking at the simulations or maybe the content in the section, I used to take it, slightly slow so that I don't get overwhelmed. But apart from that, like, in one of your videos, you mentioned that, you need to gift yourself something or reward yourself something after every exam.
Yeah.
So like after my second exam, I tried to reward myself. I got a little bit of, bicycle gear. Like I got a sunglasses while riding the bicycle. And then
Yeah.
after the next exam, I bought the cycling gear. And then maybe after the exam, maybe I'm planning to purchase a bicycle for long distance cycling, probably.
That's awesome. What was your test day experience like? Did you get through the MCQs pretty quickly? So you had a lot of time for the sims, or what was the hardest part about test day, or any surprises? Just what was your whole test day experience like?
Yeah, sure. So the first exam was I didn't know what to expect in the first section, but before the exam, I had made up my mind that I'm just budgeting the time during the exam. So I
Mhm.
had thought of maybe giving around 40 to 45 minutes for the couple of sections each, so that in within 1.5 hours I can clear the two testlets of MCQs, and the rest of
Yeah.
the time I parked it for the simulations. And also for each simulations, I planned around 10 to 15 minutes in order to solve them. I was actually pretty much successful in terms of going through the fast section because I was able to complete the exam and I took the entire 4 hours to, give my fast section. But
Mhm.
the experience wasn't the same for the audit first section. Over there, since I had already given my exam, so I was of the opinion that, okay, this time I need to get my MCQs right. And I ended up spending a little bit more time than I budgeted for the MCQs. And after that, the simulations, I just had to rush through them. And during the exam, I felt that, okay, I think I went wrong somewhere and I couldn't clear for the first time the audit section.
So I was going to
Uh,
ask you about audit. Did you ever have an auditing class like in your bachelor's degree or anything?
yes, I did, but then that was Indian audit. It was not US audit. It seems
So
similar.
auditing is,
I actually learned the audit after studying for the CPA exams because in the bachelor's degree, like, it was just a course and then I just, went through it. So,
right.
nothing special. But then the actual audit I learned from the CPA course because it's very comprehensive. It is very detailed and then it goes process after process. Like you really get to know what an
Yeah.
auditor does. So I actually learned audit like with the help of CPA course.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is when you started studying audit or studying for the audit section, that's essentially that was just brand new to you. Like you're learning it from scratch, basically.
Yes,
That
yes,
would be,
yes.
that would be hard, real hard. In fact,
Yeah.
audit ends up being hard for a lot of, maybe I shouldn't say a lot, but if you don't work in audit and then you take the audit exam, like audit ends up being the hardest exam for a lot of people just because it's so much of it sounds really, really similar, but it's obviously very different depending on what report you're talking about or, what process. So was that the case for you? Was it really difficult to even get to where you felt like you had a good understanding of it?
No, actually, audit, I found it interesting and kind of easy as well because
Mm,
I took around a couple of months to prepare for the first attempt of audit exam. And I was, confident enough that I will, clear. But what happened was on the exam day, I ended up going off my budget and then spending more time on the MCQs, which
yeah.
led me to rush through the simulations. And then like I had to it didn't go well at the end. And
Yeah.
the second attempt, I totally made a point that, I'm not giving more time, even though I don't get the MCQs correct. So the second attempt, I went through the exam and then I actually finished it, I think 15, 20 minutes beforehand. And I was confident enough that, this time it actually went well. So the second attempt of audit was good and I cleared it.
Awesome. And how long did you study for your retake for the second one?
I took around a week.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, actually, the thing was, I gave my first attempt in the month of April and the second attempt in the month of August. So that was pretty long because in between I gave my BEC section as well, which I cleared in the first attempt. So I think there were a couple of weeks time between the BEC and audit section. And yeah, I think I took around a week's time to prepare for audits the second time. And since I had prepared my PPT slides, as I told you, right? So that was very, very crucial because I couldn't afford to get back to the books again. So I
Mhm.
had read through the Superfast CPA review material and the main course provider material, all of that. And I had prepared my notes and all the MCQs that I had attempted in my first attempt. I made those flashcards in the form of PPTs. And in this way, for me, I was able to, prepare for it in a week's time and then give my exams.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So you failed out at the first time and then just moved on to BEC, took that, passed it, and then did your audit
Yes.
retake.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That's because I think the CPA, they were undergoing the changes after July 1st, right? So
Oh, yeah.
I really wanted to give the sections before the July. But I think in India, the COVID again started to rise. The COVID cases started to rise during that time.
Hmm.
And the prometric centers, they didn't allow the candidates to come and take the exam. And that is why I had to just wait after July. And then I gave my BEC in the month of July last week and the audit second week of August. So yeah, in that way, I ended up giving it in the new syllabus itself, but
Yeah.
fortunately I cleared it.
Nice. And I guess so you studied mainly for the BEC version pre-July changes.
Yeah. Yes.
So was there a lot of surprises on the exam because you ended up taking it after the July changes? I mean, I know we're not supposed to talk about any specific things you saw, but was there any big surprises or was it still pretty much what you'd studied for?
Yeah. So actually, I had prepared for the old syllabus itself, but since I had given it late July, right? So I was kind of aware, what were the new topics that are going to be tested, especially the information technology part of the BC exam.
Hmm.
So I was, and also the main course provider, they were, kind enough to provide updated material. And also I had updated my Superfast CPA version as well for the 2021 study material. And in that way, the BC material was pretty much updated. And on the exam day, I didn't find it surprising. Like I was, it went actually well for me. But I think the task-based simulations were kind of, tricky. And the written communication tests, that was okay. I actually gave 1 hour of time in order to complete the written communication testlet, because that requires that much time, because we're not used to the keyboard which the test center provides us. And there are a lot of factors that we actually don't think that come into the picture while giving the exam. So I, parked around 1 hour for the written communication tests. And I was not that confident after giving BC exam because of the simulations, but I felt that the WCDs were, you know, the key which helped me clear the exam.
The what were the key?
The written communication testlet, the last testlet.
Oh, okay. And then, so now that you're studying for reg, how are you finding that material? Is that really difficult, or it's just like anything else, you're just learning it and it's really not that difficult? It's just taking time to get through it all?
Actually, reg material is kind of, I don't know, for me as an Indian student, it seems to be very new. And I'm finding it a little difficult right now because there are a lot of sections. And right now I'm just slowly going through the material, trying to understand. So I still have 2.5 months of time to prepare for it. However, office work is also there. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to balance.
Yeah, I would say on reg, especially, you want to focus on what you're seeing in the questions, because what's easy to happen on reg is when you start thinking about things, especially with tax questions, you will think of how it connects to other tax rules, and it might be like an exception, or you think it might be an exception. I guess basically what I'm saying is restrict yourself to the explanations per question instead of seeing a question, thinking about it, and then thinking, okay, I need to go back to that entire lesson, or, look up how this connects with these other tax rules I'm kind of familiar with. Just try to keep it simple and confine yourself to the explanations given for each question, because typically the questions, they won't get that complicated, as in really trying to test if you're thinking of this other exception. Like that comes into real practice if you were actually doing tax research for clients, but hopefully that's not confusing. But it's easy to
Okay.
confuse yourself and make it more complicated than it really is basically what I'm saying for reg.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. That's what I'm just trying to go through the syllabus right now. And also, I would like to, just tell the audience, whoever is watching, that speaking to people who have already given their exam as to how their experience was is very much important. Because as a candidate, if you're giving the exam for the first time, it is very important to have the experienced folks who have already given their exam. The tips are very important from the already given candidates. It will help you very much during your exams. So I recommend that the candidates who are watching this to speak with people who have already given their exam and try and get their experience before they give their CPA sections.
yeah, and that's one thing that sometimes, like at my firm when I started and all of us new hires were studying for the exams, we would talk about it, but it would always be like, did you pass? Like it was almost kind of a pride thing, it seemed like almost you didn't want to, I don't know, talk a ton about your process. Or I mean, maybe it wasn't like that, but it kind of, there was some element of that, it's very much a pride thing, like who's passed the fastest.
Yeah.
And then some people even didn't want to say they were taking an exam that weekend in case they failed, because then they know you'd get asked about it. Anyways.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think that's a good point. Just asking, and then also people that have taken it, hopefully just being helpful about whatever tips they have. So that's
Yes.
kind of getting to my last question. So even if it's something we already talked about, what would you say your main top 2 or 3 tips are for people who are still trying to figure out their own study process?
Yeah. So if I have to, give tips, or, since I have given my CPA exam, so I am experienced enough to slightly advise the new candidates who are going to give their
Yeah.
exam. So I would say that getting into the material every day in and day out is key. You shouldn't skip a day of study, because if you skip the day and then you lose the momentum, it's very hard to get back. Momentum is key. and revising the topics, whatever we studied earlier. And I think I forgot to mention the set of 30 questions, which you reiterate every now and then. I used to
Yeah.
do that. I used to keep in mind doing that set of 30 questions every day, even after I do my new material, because that will help us retain the material that we had already studied before. So
hmm
that is very important. And flashcards, I would recommend PowerPoint slides. Maybe that is a new thing to the
Yeah.
audience whoever is listening to them.
hmm
PowerPoint slides definitely help.
Yeah, I would say the main three things that I always talk about is obviously like going through the new lessons. That's just obvious. Like you have to do that. You have to go through all the material. And then to retain the information, retain that material, and always build on your understanding. Those three things are the daily set of 30, because that solves a lot of problems in advance. That helps you get good at answering multiple choice questions just in general so that you can get through them pretty quickly on test day. And then having some form of putting the topics that you struggle with in your own words, like you said. The third thing is just using the study tools from your phone, because we all have a phone. We look at it all day long. And if you're going through this process, you're putting in the time and money and effort to try and pass these exams. You might as well just be always working on it, just even in 5-minute chunks. So, yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, Roland, it was awesome to meet you. I appreciate you doing the call. And we've actually
Thank you.
I actually get requests because there's more and more Indian CPA candidates, obviously. Like, I mean, you're
Yes.
an example of that. So I get requests like do more interviews, because I think so far we've only had one interview. Did you see that? Have you heard that interview with I can't remember his name. Do you remember hearing one of our podcast
I,
interviews with
I
another Indian candidate?
I think I have, like, on Spotify. I had come across, I think, that Indian candidate, but I didn't listen to that. But since I had to get through this interview, right? So I had made it a point to just go to the recent podcast. But I
Yeah.
think I had come across that person's name, but even I don't remember.
Man, which one was that? Just looking at the podcast right now. Well, I know it's on there. I can't see it. We have a lot at this point. We have like over 60. I think we have like 65 interviews. Well, yeah, again, it was great to meet you. I'm glad our study tools
Thank
could
you, Dave.
help. And yeah, let me know what is it, Reg? Let us know how Reg goes. Oh, because you've been posting in the forum,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I actually, and also one more motivating factor that I had was I really wanted to share my success with everyone. And I had decided that if I clear my exam, I will definitely post it on the Superfast CPA forum. And that
Yeah.
was actually some sort of a motivating factor for me, because, once I cleared, I immediately went ahead and posted my results on the Superfast CPA forum. Even that was a
Yeah. No, I
motivating
mean,
factor for me.
yeah. And that's what's nice about being part of a group, the having a forum like that or whatever it is. A lot of people are starting to say, because we've had the podcast for like a year and a half now. We just we get people reaching out to us wanting to be on the podcast, and they say stuff like, once I heard your podcast, it was like my goal to pass so that I could be on your podcast. And so, yeah, just
Okay.
those kind of factors, like whatever helps
Yeah.
motivate you.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
awesome. Okay, so that was the interview with Rolwin. I'm sure you found that very helpful and very motivating. If you do find these interviews helpful, these take a lot of time. If you think through what this takes to do these interviews, it takes a lot of time to get with our customers, line up our schedules, get on these interviews, record them, edit them, publish them. So if you're finding these useful, I would just ask you two things. Please take a second to find the podcast in the podcast app where you listen to these, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, or actually don't think you can leave reviews on Spotify. Not really sure, because I don't use Spotify for podcasts, but I know that a lot of listeners use Spotify podcasts. So if you can leave a review, do that as well. But basically, if you're finding these helpful, please take a second to leave a rating and a review. It obviously really helps, and it's a free way to support these free interviews. The second thing would be to just share an episode or the podcast in general with someone you know who is also working on their CPA exams. My opinion is that these interviews, getting to hear the full experience that somebody goes through in all these different perspectives and all the different things these different people have struggled with, figured out, mistakes they were making, their breakthroughs, then the things that were really working. These interviews are the most helpful free resource available anywhere for anyone trying to figure out their own CPA study process. So thank you for watching or listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.